Hey guys, it's Captain Forrest here, and I'm back on Corin O'Keefe's channel. Welcome folks. In today's team battle, I'm going to be going over both these teams to see who would win more often than not in an equal stats situation. Ultimate X-Men versus the Teen Titans. So for the Ultimate X-Men, there will be 5 members on their team, which will consist of Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, and Nightcrawler. Now, before I start this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and give me your thoughts and feedback in the comment section. Also, if you guys would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. And of course, shouts to HQ Squad, shouts to Corin, shouts to everyone else. Much appreciated to them. So, I'm going to go ahead, start off with the leader of the Ultimate X-Men, Cyclops. So Cyclops' mutant power is his optic blast, which allows him to fire off a force beam from his eyes involuntarily. He must wear his ruby quartz visor or sunglasses to neutralize the beams, allowing him to see. He is able to make great use of his visor, as he can press the button on his visor to remove the ruby quartz lens, allowing his optic blast to fire from his eyes. And he also has a button on his gloves to open his visor when compromised. Cyclops can shoot out his optic blast as a widespread to take out multiple foes. Cyclops can increase the potency of his optic blast, but in character he prefers to use a low frequency unless he is bloodlusted. Cyclops can lobotomize his foes with an optic blast. The range of Cyclops' optic blast can touch the clouds in the sky, which is very impressive since high clouds have the base heights of at least 3,000 to 7,600 meters and possibly higher. Cyclops is tactical with his optic blast. Cyclops can ricochet his optic blast off Colossus' head to tag a goon. Cyclops can blast the floor to make his foes lose their balance. Cyclops can also target weak points on a person's body with just his optic blast alone. He talks about a specific body part, noting that if a bullet tagged where he hit, the foe would have lost 5 pints of blood, showing his knowledge on vital areas. Cyclops has also demonstrated to use his optic blast to slow himself down when he's falling from the sky. Cyclops also has really good senses. He's used his hearing to detect and take out a goon with his optic blast. And Cyclops is also trained to operate blind also. Cyclops was able to endure falling from a cliff with broken bones. He goes on to survive on with nothing but bugs and inedible things while trapped in a cave for 26 days. In the Ultimates guidebook, it's noted that Cyclops is an excellent tactician and strategist. Charles notes that Cyclops' leadership skills are exceptional, especially in combat classes. That's going to round up Cyclops. Let's move on down the line to Ultimate Wolverine. Now, believe it or not, Wolverine has some decent skill under his belt. He's an expert in hand-to-hand combat. He's trained in Black Ops and has different types of fighting maneuvers implanted in his brain, and was able to hospitalize 50 to 60 men all in combat and not kill them. Wolverine is a dirty fighter. With his adamantium claws, he sliced off Sabretooth's testicles, targets the neck and eyeballs. He also kicks Cyclops in the nuts. Wolverine also has his enhanced senses. It's very difficult to get the drop on him. He's able to catch his own scent from 4 miles away. This just proves how great of a tracker Wolverine is, even in the Ultimate verse. Wolverine also has Type 3 mortality. You see, what makes Ultimate Wolverine a little bit more different and unique from his 616 counterpart is that Wolverine's genetics and mutant powers are designed for survival. After Hulk rips Wolverine's head off, he is able to stay alive just fine without his body by breathing through his skin. He's also demonstrated to take 100 bullets and heal just fine. Wolverine is no slouch when it comes to his willpower and endurance like his 616 counterpart. Wolverine is able to fight even while being reduced to a skeleton. He's taken a lightning bolt from Storm, tanked atomizing fire from the Phoenix Force, and an optic blast. Wolverine's adamantium is indestructible, and it's been demonstrated to tank atomization unscathed. Lastly, Wolverine has his own Feral Berserker Rage, which gives him an unquantifiable boost in AP, as he was able to demolish a group of Sentinels. Wolverine's physiology has been altered so that he is invisible to telepaths and cannot be tracked. Powerful telepaths like Charles and Jean had trouble and were unable to read his mind, and Tony's Iron Man suit could not detect Wolverine. Wolverine's healing factor helps him resist and snap out of hypnosis. So that's going to round up Wolverine. Let's move on to the Russian himself, Colossus. So Ultimate Colossus's mutant powers allow him to convert his body into a form of organic steel. It increases his weight and durability and makes him impervious to most conventional attacks. While in his organic steel state, he possesses tremendous super strength, and bullets literally bounce off his steel skin as his steel body is completely bulletproof. Colossus has demonstrated tremendous might, such as casually tossing and ragdolling a giant sentinel in the air accurately. Colossus has amazing willpower. He has used his willpower and might to push through Magneto's magnetic field that was pinning Colossus to the ground. He's also demonstrated to rip off an opponent's limb. He's ripped off Wolverine's leg. Colossus can endure having lava poured onto him, and while in his organic steel state, he can breathe underwater just fine. Colossus's steel body has more impressive showings, such as resisting and tanking atomizing lasers from Nimrods. Colossus has no-sold lightning attacks from Storm, and has also endured a nuke going off. And lastly, Colossus in his steel state is able to survive without his heart as long as he remains in his steel state. Now, that's going to round up Colossus. Let's move on down the line to the Thunder Goddess herself, Storm. So Ultimate Storm's mutant powers allow her to manipulate the weather. She can blast her opponents with lightning. Her lightning can also stun her opponents too. Storm uses a new technique and performs a chain ball lightning to destroy a group of sentinels and utilizes range from a distance. Storm's emotions affect the weather. When she is sad or angry, it causes a thunderstorm. She can change the weather whenever she wants. She's able to create blizzards on a large scale. Storm can create a gust of wind to blast her foes away, and she can create fog to hide from her opponents. Storm has demonstrated to use the environment to her advantage, such as blasting a tree to cause it to fall on her opponent. She can also create acid fog and fill your lungs with it too. Storm can trap her foes in mini tornadoes, and that's gonna pretty much round up Storm. Now, last but not least, let's go over the teleporter himself, Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler's mutant powers allow him to teleport. He's used his teleportation in different ways, such as teleporting to evade projectiles. He can teleport behind his foes to get the drop on them. Nightcrawler's teleportation can reach around at least 2 miles. Nightcrawler can teleport people and objects. He was able to teleport himself and his sports car while driving, and he can spam his teleportation powers if need be. Nightcrawler can teleport people in the air, causing them to fall to the ground. He can BFR his opponents and leave them stranded in random locations. Now moving on, Nightcrawler's physiology makes him very agile and acrobatic. He has great dexterity with his hands, toes and tail. He can stick to walls, use his tail in combat like a arm, such as removing Cyclops' visor and hanging from places. And as for resistances, Nightcrawler has taken an atomic laser blast, so he has some atomizing resistances, so he can't be vaporized. And he's also demonstrated that he has mental blocks in his head, which protects him from telepaths. So that is going to round up the Ultimate X-Men team. I'm gonna go ahead, talk about Robin, see what his gadgets bring to the table. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Robin's gadgets. So Robin comes equipped with flashbang discs, which the explosive light blinds and disorientates his opponent. Robin carries ice discs, which freezes the target in place upon contact. The ice discs are cold enough to freeze fire. Robin also carries explosive discs. He also carries a sticky disc, which covers the person with a sticky adhesive to incapacitate them. Robin also carries an electric disc to shock his opponent. Robin carries fire extinguisher discs. And lastly, Robin carries explosive magnetic discs, which magnetically stick onto you, and carries a few of them to deal with a group of enemies. Robin's discs can stick to surfaces, and he can also set a timer on them so they detonate at a certain time. Robin also carries smoke grenades with him. He can use them tactically to gain the advantage in combat, and also carries sticky bombs too. Robin is also equipped with a shockwave grenade, which creates a giant AoE and blasts a giant wave of energy to blast back his opponents. Robin is also equipped with an EMP, reminiscent to Batman. Robin also carries around his own version of batarangs called the birdarangs. It's been shown that Robin carries at least 6 of them, and possibly more. Robin can also throw his birdarangs in order to cut through objects, and he can throw them in a way so they return back to him. He can also throw his birdarangs, and he's used this to disarm his opponents. He can also use it for physical melee confrontations, so he can slice his opponents in half. There is also a unique feature to Robin's birdarangs, as it's been demonstrated by Robin that he can combine his birdarangs together and turn them into a sword. Robin is equipped with a birdarang hookshot, which contains a rope which Robin uses against plasmas to restrain him, and he can also use it to latch onto walls. It's shown that he's able to carry 2 hookshots at a time. Robin also comes equipped with a net and a bolas for takedowns. Robin carries his trusty combat staff. If one end of his staff breaks or becomes compromised, Robin can extend the other side of his staff and use that for combat. He also carries 2 staffs as a backup or to dual wield. Robin uses his staff to hold off his enemies, such as restraining Cinderblock and using his staff as a gag to keep Beast Boy from biting him. Robin can also use his staff as a projectile to throw at his opponents and have the staff return back to him. He can also intercept and deflect projectiles with his staff. Robin's cape is pretty interesting. The cape is made of a highly dense titanium, which is 10 times stronger than steel. Robin's cape is also resistant to fire, and he can also use his cape to deflect attacks. Robin is equipped with jet boots and a cape glider along with his motorcycle. So that's going to round up all of Robin's basic arsenal. I'm going to go ahead and move on to skill and resistances. Robin notes that playing video games helps him and his teammates with their combat training, reflexes, eye-hand coordination and teamwork efficiency. Robin improves his skill by training with True Master. He goes on to get a really nice skill amp as he's taught animal combat techniques. Robin also defeats Shaolin monks in hand-to-hand combat who are using Shaolin Kung Fu. Robin is able to take on multiple ninjas and clear them away with his staff. Robin is also skilled enough to parry attacks and disarm some goons by kicking the weapons out of their hands. Robin has also demonstrated amazing accuracy feats such as accurately throwing a birdarang and disarming a Slade robot. In fact, at carnival events, they won't let Robin play any game of sock and rock because his throwing accuracy is built too different. Robin can hit an accurate bullseye from 100 feet away, so his accuracy feats are just really insane. He's also demonstrated this really sick trick shot where he was able to throw a nice disc and a batarang in such a way that the birdarang tags the ice disc and detonates in his opponent's face, which freezes them in place, and it makes them panic too. Robin's accuracy is really good. He's also demonstrated to throw 6 birdarangs at all sprinklers. Robin purposely throws his explosive discs near his opponents to create a smokescreen in order to get in close, and he's able to close the distance this way, especially against ranged opponents. He's also demonstrated weapon improvisation and will turn any object he sees around him into a weapon. Robin has demonstrated great proficiency with his birdarang, sword and staff. Slade himself has complimented Robin's skill and even views Robin as a perfect apprentice. Robin can mix it up and bamboozle his foes by throwing different discs, such as a basic disc mixed with a flashbang, all at the same time, to overwhelm the opponent. Robin is able to get around Private Hive's shield and use it to his advantage to wrestle and restrain him while he was sick and had chickenpox. And also, Robin is very acrobatic. It's noted that Robin and his family are one of the best acrobats. He has demonstrated a lot of acrobatic showings to evade and dodge attacks. Robin also has enhanced senses and is able to beat up a bunch of robotic monks. Robin can use his other senses if his eyesight is compromised. And Robin is a great team leader and has demonstrated great leadership skills and tactics. Now lastly, for resistances, Robin was able to resist Mad Mod's hypnosis. Robin uses great willpower to push through the pain he was taking from having cellular probes attack his body from the insides. That's going to round up Robin. Let's talk about the Gothic girl herself. Raven is very proficient with her telekinesis, such as removing a slab from the floor, controlling multiple objects, and being able to coat a room with her dark magic to telekinetically deconstruct and move all objects around in the room. She's also demonstrated to deconstruct Robin's laser cannon. Raven can move or push people and objects around with telekinesis. Raven is demonstrated to grab people's clothing, such as grabbing Robin's cape and pinning him to the ground. Raven can also manifest dark constructs, such as a hand, to grab people. She was able to contain an explosion by using a hand construct to grab and conceal the explosion. She also did this to Starfire to contain her explosive sneezes. Raven can also summon dark tendrils to grab her opponents and can summon multiple hand constructs. She can shoot out a crescent construct to cut through Terra's rocks. Raven can also create a scissor construct. She does this in order to cut Puppet King strings from Starfire. Raven can seal you inside a bird cage, and she can create multiple dark bubbles to seal you inside. She can also telekinetically control them too. Raven can also crush you inside her barriers. You can also mount objects she imbues with dark magic. Raven can put up a dark barrier to protect herself and others from harm. Raven can create small telekinetic barriers with her hands to block attacks. She can also create a barrier to deflect attacks too, and she can break out of restraints by flexing a barrier. She can also shoot out dark magic blasts at her foes. Raven can cast dark lightning from the sky, and Raven can also astral project and attack with her soul. Raven can also create portals and phase people and herself through objects. She can also cancel out other people's intangibility. Raven can also create portals to BFR her opponents. Raven can levitate, teleport and fly. She can also BFR herself and her friends from danger. She can also open a portal and enter into a different dimension. She can also seal and shroud everyone in darkness. She's able to use pyrokinesis and spread dark flames. She can perform a shockwave and blast Cyborg into a wall. Raven can also transmutate people, such as turning Beast Boy into a rat, turning Puppet King into a lifeless, inanimate puppet. Raven can also turn into a dark raven to travel to different places and also keep people hidden inside her form. Raven can also use clairvoyance, such as seeing through Robin's eyes and mind. She can also read people's minds and look through their memories. And being an empath, Raven can sense people. Raven's powers are driven by emotion. Raven can also stop time and also unfreeze others who are trapped in her time stop. Raven also has empathy manipulation. Raven can use her magic to calm others down. She can also heal her allies with her magic. Her healing magic also heals the body and mind. Raven has some resistances. She was able to briefly resist Puppet King's soul taking a puppet spell and quickly cast out a black wave to make Puppet King drop his controller. Now as for equipment, Raven carries a mirror that allows her to keep tabs on people. So that's going to round up Raven. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Starfire. So the aspect of Starfire's powers work pretty much the same as Raven's, except if Starfire experiences emotional conflict, she will lose her powers. Now Starfire has some pretty good powers, such as being able to fire green star bolts from her hands. She can shoot out clusters of them. She can perform starbolt spam, where she throws starbolts at her foes with quick speed. She can also BFR her foes by blasting them away with a starbolt, and she can also focus and fire a concentrated starbolt for added precision. Starfire has demonstrated to fire a starbolt to disarm her opponents. She can also perform heat vision by firing starbolts from her eyes, and her starbolts can also mount objects too. She's also demonstrated that she can use her starbolts kind of like telekinetically, so she can mount objects with them. For example, when Cinderblock was holding a girder, Starfire literally just performs this telekinetic flash where her starbolt energy completely melts a girder from Cinderblock's hand, which is pretty impressive. And Starfire also has explosive sneezes. She can also use a telekinetic starbolt to vaporize Mumbo's hat. She can also blind you with her starbolts like a solar flare. She can also illuminate dark areas with her starbolts. Starfire can also charge up a starball and throw it at her opponents. And she can also flex her energy to vaporize objects around her too. She's also demonstrated to use this in order to break out of ceiling or to perform a giant AoE to target multiple enemies in the room. Now as for Starfire, physically she has super strength, and she has demonstrated this by kicking Cinderblock into next week, and she also is immune to radiation, and she can also breathe and survive in space. Starfire can also survive in harsh weather conditions. And that's going to conclude Starfire. Now, let's talk about Beast Boy. Now, Beast Boy's power allows him to turn into any creature. It's also noted that Beast Boy can turn into any animal. Examples of animals such as tigers, cobras, frogs, and a crane. Beast Boy can perform and fight like these individual animals also. Beast Boy can also turn into a ram and headbutt people, turn into different species of birds, turn into a skunk and blast a foul spray in his opponent's face. He can also turn into a cobra to coil around and constrict his foe, and also turn into a smaller animal to get out of restraints. Beast Boy can also turn into all types of animals depending on the situation. He can turn into rodents, exotic creatures, domestic animals, bigger or more threatening animals such as a rhino, gorilla, wolf, hippo, grizzly bear, crocodile, alligator, etc. Beast Boy can also turn into creatures and dinosaurs that are extinct. Some examples include pterodactyls, tyrannosaurus, mammoth, and a dodo. Beast Boy can also turn into insects to make it difficult for his opponents to tag him, and Beast Boy has demonstrated the ability to turn into foreign alien creatures after just looking at them once, which is very impressive. And lastly, Beast Boy can also turn into different types of sea creatures such as an eel, starfish, shark, walrus, seahorse, and a squid. While he became a sea creature, he gains the ability to telepathically communicate with other sea creatures underwater. Another impressive showing for Beast Boy is his ability to turn into a microscopic cell and multiply himself. Transmutating Beast Boy into an animal is pointless, as Beast Boy can simply morph himself out of that form and into a different animal. So that's going to conclude Beast Boy. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Cyborg. He comes equipped with his sonic cannon to blast away his foes. He can also dual wield his sonic cannons too. Cyborg can also increase the potency of his sonic cannons for more destructive power and more range. It's also demonstrated that it can shoot very far as well, which is very impressive. He also has non-lethal settings installed in his sonic cannons, which can just incapacitate his opponent. When Cyborg charges his sonic cannon, he can punch it to the ground and let it shoot off a giant massive sonic blast. So it kind of shoots off like a large widespread even, which is very impressive. Cyborg has his hidden sonic cannon inside of the sole of his boot. As a last resort, he can blast out 50,000 watts of power from his chest. When he's compromised, Cyborg can still control his limbs even when they are taken off, as he can use the circuitry to restrain literally his opponents like he did to Cinderblock. He can also knock him out this way, which is very impressive. He used this technique to pretty much get him off guard, because they are unsuspecting of this maneuver. Cyborg also can shoot out his arms and tag his foes from a distance. He can also use it as a grappling hook. He can shoot out his arm to perform a rocket punch, and his arms are also equipped with small jets. Cyborg can operate and control his hand, even when it's not attached to his arm. Cyborg's arms are equipped with cables that he can use to interact with objects, and if need be, he can restrain his targets. Cyborg's arms are also equipped with a cable net to restrain his opponent. He also comes equipped with a buzzsaw. He can also use his arm for melee combat too, so he could spank his opponents with them. And he also comes equipped with rockets and a glider. Now Cyborg comes equipped with his cybernetic eye, which has different settings, such as a setting which allows him to scan and see people who attempt to use invisibility. He has night vision, bioscans, x-ray vision. He can pick up explosives. He can pick up different sounds and frequencies, and spiritual signatures too, and he can also record footage with his cybernetic eye too. He can also shoot out a jamming signal. Now that's going to round up his equipment. I'm going to go ahead and talk about resistances. So Cyborg can resist and detect when someone is trying to tamper with his mind. Cyborg was completely unaffected by Simon's mind control, as Cyborg's brain is not wired the same as a conventional brain. Cyborg can also resist sleep hacks, as Cyborg can put up a firewall to prevent Phobia's sleep hacks from working on him. And Cyborg also has built-in counter defenses against those who attempt to physically hack into his systems. Cyborg exploits Dr. Light's lack of knowledge on machinery by making him electrocute himself by touching a dangerous component inside his body, which is very impressive. And Cyborg actually has really good willpower. He demonstrates in one of the episodes against Atlas, he was able to break his limiter and push himself beyond his own limitations. So even as a cyborg, he can literally still pull off some willpower, which is very impressive. Cyborg also has type 2, type 3 immortality. Due to Cyborg having mechanical parts, Cyborg can operate fine when his limbs come off, as he has no pain receptors on his mechanical parts. He can also use his soul to absorb nearby machinery to repair any of his damaged parts. Cyborg is very hands-on, he has great team leading skills, and he's also shown to temporarily help out the Titan East, and even the Titan East didn't want him to leave because of how impressive his leadership roles are in the team. He's an excellent repairsman, is often used and pretty much relied on by the Titans. Cyborg also is smart enough to configure the bounty hunter's spaceship and input coordinates to BFR them. Okay, so now to determine who would win more often than not in this equal stats situation for both teams. So I'm going to start off with Cyclops and Robin. Now in terms of leadership skills, I have to lean a little bit more so with Robin. I think he has more experience, he's more skilled when it comes to leadership, and as well as being skilled in hand-to-hand combat as well. He's demonstrated better feats and better coordination and synchronization with his team compared to Cyclops. Unfortunately for Ultimate Cyclops, he just doesn't have the feats compared to his 616 self. He lacks a lot of feats for his leadership skills, and plus this Cyclops is like a novice. It's probably one of the weaker Cyclopses in terms of leadership skills. Despite the statements, there's just not enough evidence or proof or enough feats to back this up. In fact, there's a lot of feats to prove that Cyclops tends to panic, tends to get worried in these types of situations when he's having to deal with a team or when he's like leading a team. So I think if it comes down to leadership skills, I think Robin has it down more often than not. So if Cyclops was to go at it with Robin, I think Robin would definitely exert some stamina. Both of them would. Cyclops tends to use his optic blast pretty straightforward. He likes to shoot it in like a straight angle. Now he'd probably try and target vital parts on Robin, but Robin's pretty acrobatic, so he'd avoid those. And plus, I think once like Robin resorts to his own gear, he'd just be able to just get around the lasers, throw like an ice disc or an explosive disc or a batarang or bertarang I should say, or he'd throw a flashbang, or he'd do like the little trick where he'd like throw like a mixture of different discs, and one of them could be a flashbang or an explosive disc, and one of them could be an ice disc. Yes, Cyclops could use a widespread, but if those go off pretty close range or like a respectable distance, that could cause a problem, because then Cyclops could get blinded. Cyclops could also have to deal with the explosive pushback as well. And another thing for Robin has really good accuracy, so he could throw one of his discs in a way where Cyclops isn't able to tag the disc, because unfortunately Cyclops lacks accuracy feats to some degree. Like, he has some decent accuracy feats, but he doesn't demonstrate it on a crazy level like his 616 self. So in fact, one of the bertarangs could smack away the visor, and that could be a huge problem. And in a team situation, like, Cyclops isn't just going to let loose. He's going to try and cover his eyes, and he's going to be distracted. And yes, he could operate blind, but by that time, like, he'd be off guard. He won't have enough time to gather himself. And I see Robin just taking victory more often than not. He just hit him with an explosive disc, blow him up, ice disc, freeze him into place. There's nothing Cyclops can do in that situation. So I think Robin would beat Cyclops. Now Wolverine, this is a different story. I think Wolverine has really good willpower. His healing factor may not be the greatest healing factor, but it does its job. And plus, he has the durability with his indestructible adamantium, and his little feral rage, his berserker rage, as well as Wolverine is very relentless in combat. Now granted, yes, Robin has a lot of utility. He has a lot of objects and items that could help him against Wolverine, but I just see this fight, like how I envision it, Robin is just going to pretty much just be delaying the inevitable. Those weapons, yeah, it will slow Wolverine down at first, but once Wolverine gets in, I think that's GG. Like, those claws will be a huge problem, and he will definitely be able to stab Robin. Like, both are skilled. Wolverine has his own skill feats, Robin does too. I don't think Wolverine is beat in the skill department. So if he, like, once he gets in, especially when he's berserked and raging, he'd get in and slice Robin, and I think that'd be GG, because there's no, once he expels all his objects and items, there's not much he can do. The batons that Robin has, Wolverine will just slice those into pieces. I really don't see what his melee weapons are going to do. They're pretty fodder, so I think Wolverine would take victory in that regard. So now that Wolverine has got rid of Robin, now let's talk about Colossus and Cyborg. Now with Cyborg, I think Cyborg would probably take victory. I think they'd probably go at it at first, they'd probably punch each other up, but I just think that Cyborg is pretty hacksy once he starts using his cannons, especially the sonic cannon that could literally blast Colossus away. Now Colossus would be able to take that pretty easily and endure it, but I think if he uses his non-lethal weapons like his ultrasonic cannons, that definitely incapacitate Colossus. Colossus hasn't resisted anything on that level, so I definitely think that would knock him out and leave him unconscious. Now Storm versus Starfire, that's interesting. So Storm could definitely hold off Starfire for a bit with some of her like weather manipulation abilities. So she could use a gust of wind, blizzard, that could also help too, or like shooting lightning. However, like Storm, her weather manipulation, like her versatility just isn't as versatile compared to 616 self. So she doesn't use like suck the air out of people's like lungs like a vacuum, or trying to freeze them. She like lacks those types of nasty ratchet feats. I think Starfire would just be fine. She'd be able to fly in, and I think Storm lacks a lot of defense. She relies heavily on range, and if she gets like intercepted, and if Starfire is able to get in close, which I think she will, especially with the Starbolt assaults and the heat vision, I think that's just going to terminate Storm. I don't really think Storm's like Haxes will do a lot, and even if the lightning does tag Starfire, I think Starfire will just be fine. She'd take that pretty easily, or she'd just counteract it with her own Starbolts. So I think it'd be inevitable Starfire would get in and defeat Storm. Now if Starfire sees Wolverine taking out Robin, Starfire would definitely be bloodlusted. She'd go in, she'd start spamming Starbolts at Wolverine, but again, Wolverine's adamantium, it's demonstrated to take atomizing fire from the Phoenix Force, so I think the adamantium would be just fine, just like its 616 counterpart. So no one is breaking that adamantium. It's just way too durable, it's indestructible, so it would eat those blasts no difficulty. And I think if Starfire gets in close, which she will, she's going to try and box up Wolverine. This will just set her up to get stabbed, and I think that'd be GG in terms of like that situation. I think Wolverine would take out Robin and Starfire, especially if Wolverine sees Storm die as well. That'd set off Wolverine too. Now it'd come down to Raven and Cyborg. Raven is going to be absolutely furious. Raven will rip apart Wolverine pretty easily with her telekinetic powers. She could BFR him. She's extremely hacksy in her own right. She has her own like empathy manipulation, so that could dispatch off Wolverine pretty easy. She could just rip him into pieces, because his limbs aren't like laced with adamantium, so that could be ripped off and thrown into pieces. Like, she's pretty sadistic when she's pissed, so I think that'd be an issue. So I think that Raven, in my opinion, is probably the biggest threat on the team, so she would dispatch of Wolverine pretty easily. Now Nightcrawler could do some shenanigans. He could teleport, especially if he fights against Beast Boy, which is pretty interesting. The problem I think with Nightcrawler is that his teleportation powers just won't be very effective. It can only go for about 2 miles, and even if he like BFRs like Beast Boy for example, or Raven can just teleport back. Beast Boy could turn into a animal and just burrow out of the ground or from a cave, or if he tries to teleport him into the sky, he just turns into a bird, or if he tries to just do weird like wacky teleportation spam, it'd more so be for defense, because the Titans will be hot on Nightcrawler's butt. And I think ultimately, like, because especially with like how Nightcrawler's mutant power works, if he spams teleportation too much, he will exert himself Granted, yes, he has more stamina and equal stats, but again, he will eventually run out of steam. And this is where I see Raven, Cyborg, and Beast Boy getting in there, and they're just going to whoop his ass and take victory. So more often than not, I have to give victory to the Teen Titans with mid to high difficulty. I definitely think Wolverine is going to be a huge problem for them. I just think that if it comes down to Wolverine and some of the other characters, they'd be an issue, but I just think that they have the manpower, they have the haxes to dispose of the X-Men ultimately. Now, if we was to include Jean or like Charles Xavier, the reason why I didn't include them was because they completely one-shot the Teen Titans. Even in equal stats, they're just way too powerful. The haxes are way too disgusting, and even for Raven's pay grade, she just gets soloed. So this is why I've constructed this team, to make the fight more interesting. So I think if it was in this scenario and this setting, I have to lean more so with the Teen Titans. So I thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and please consider subscribing to Coin's channel. But yeah, it's been real. See you guys in the next one. Peace.